Welcome to the Tile Happy Hour. It is Tuesday, and Tuesday is the day we are here to talk about tile. Anything and everything you want to talk, it is your show. We are broadcasting live from places that we're not allowed to mention. John Tedesco is here, and we're not going to say where he's hiding or where I'm hiding, but we are live right now, and this is your show to talk about anything and everything tile industry, how tile is made, where to find tile, anything. Jump into the conversation. John, how are you? It's Tuesday. We made it.
It is Tuesday. I'm doing great. I can't believe it's not sunny out at this time. It was just a few short weeks ago when summer
was over. You didn't listen to me.
I didn't want to accept it. The summer was over, and the last show we had, 2 shows ago, we were kind of commemorating the end of summer, but I was saying, no, there's still some time left, but I'm finally conceding. It's
gone now. All that time is gone. It is gone. John, there's something new on the screen tonight. Tell us what's going on. I know it's happy hour, but it looks like
it is happy hour, and this is my bar cam in case
okay, the bar cam. Oh, I remember. I used to have the drink cam, and ever since I redid my office, I have not set the drink cam back up. But I'm glad you're jumping in with the bar cam. That you know what? Good.
Something very strange because the alcohol is getting lower and lower on the bottle, so I'm trying to keep an eye on what's going on. I don't know what's happening.
That's a good idea. It's bad when the levels of the alcohol in the bottles are getting lower. That means you've got a problem, or maybe you do too many happy hours.
Yeah, this is true. We do at least this one happy hour a week, but there's a few others in between, private happy hours, and they're all good. But I'm glad to be here. How's your new studio going?
It's going good. I'm still ironing out the kinks. There's a lot going on. It may look decent, what you're seeing here.
That's great.
But on the other side of the camera, it's crazy. But I've been very thankful that I've been able to put out a lot of content. If you're not following John or I on our social medias, you need to. I try to multiple times a day just drop nuggets of tile information, anywhere from grout to cutting to what to buy, and maybe even something a little inspirational. And I'll say this for all those on TikTok. John just joined TikTok and was going to go live with us here so that you don't have to listen to him on the computer, but he doesn't have enough followers. So if you see that tile channel or the tile channel on TikTok, please send him a friend thing or request or I don't know. Do all those things, subscribe. And this broadcast right here, John, we hope you're watching live. And if you are, I'm watching the comments come in. Let us know where you're watching from. But John, there's another way to watch.
Yeah. So not only on Craig's TikTok and soon to be my TikTok, we got to get those follows up there in order to be able to join the TikTok world. We are on X. We are on YouTube. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook. And Craig's channels and my channels, plus Craig's TikTok. So we're tiling the world. We're spreading the love. And we'd love for you to chime in. Let us know where you're watching from. If you have a question or a comment about the show, please let us know. If you're watching live, that's fantastic. If you're watching on a repeat, still comment. We check our messages. We always get back to people. And if you can, this is John's TikTok pity party. I have one follower, and that person is Craig Cahoon.
That's right.
So are you live?
Right. So everybody in the TikTok universe, follow the Tile channel. He should be in this live somewhere if you figured out how to do that. But all of our social medias. I mean, social media is the information putter outer now. I mean, there's no Encyclopedia Britannica anymore. I do most of my studying and learning via social media. And if you're interested in tile stuff, you can't do any better than following John and I, and you'll get some tile stuff. You may see some really cool looking tiles, and John participates in some really cool activities in New York City. I don't participate in anything, I'm not allowed to leave this room.
Well, so Craig, you mentioned that you put out all these nuggets of information. If you're a tile nerd, a tile geek, if you love tile like we do, you're going to love all that content. If you don't, it's annoying, all the content that he puts out. So it's one or the other. And now I just clicked the button to see. Before, I wasn't even watching you live because I don't know how to use TikTok. So I see you now, a different angle. I see your full shirt, and pretty cool. Nice view. So
yeah, thanks.
I'm going to add a comment. I'm going to put hi so people know.
There you go. You're going to see John's comment in TikTok. Please go friend him, and we don't want him to be lonely over there. Plus, we want to get his viewer count up so that he can go live with us, so he can be on the screen too, and then it'll make more sense what's going on in this conversation. If you're watching from TikTok, that's awesome. Preppy Boy, hey. Rusick, hey. User and a bunch of numbers, hey. Love it. But this is your show. We're here to talk about tile, anything and everything, whatever you want. And tonight's topic is, we've done this before, but different.
Yes.
There are a few different tile shows across the world that are a big deal. Now there's you can find any of our reps, we work for Tile Bar, anywhere in the country with a table in the back of their car and a tablecloth and setting out some stuff in a parking lot somewhere. But this is not that. And I dare say, I've never been, but I dare say this is the biggest tile show in the world. John, what do you say?
Yeah, so Cersaie is just an amazing show. It is. So there's 3 major shows in our world. I mean, there's probably shows in Asia and things that we're probably not familiar with, right? That
I've actually been to one in Brazil.
Yeah, so there are other shows, but in the tile world, the Italian show and the Spanish show are the biggest European shows, probably the biggest global shows, and mainly because the Italians and the Spanish really are entrenched in the tile design, tile production, tile innovation. And this show, so we broadcast one of our first episodes from Orlando, Florida, right? That was the covering show. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Cersaie show, which is in Spain. But in my world, the mother of all shows is the Cersaie show. It is absolutely phenomenal. And we're going to dive into the show a little tonight, tell you more about it, tell you a little bit of my experience with the show, and why it's important in the industry to have, and how it sets the tone for next year's market, which is really super important. But we're here tonight. This is the Tile Happy Hour with my co-host Craig Cahoon, broadcasting from somewhere down south. I don't know where you are, but I'm
stuck in this room. I can't go anywhere. I agree with you. And John, Italy is, for the last decade or 50 years, been the trendsetter and the leader in ceramic porcelain tile production. When you want to figure out how it's done and done right, and the innovation for that industry, it's really come from Italy. And so I think that's the other reason this show is important. And we are here waiting currently, and nothing's come in yet, on an invite to broadcast live next year at Cersaie. I mean, not Cersaie, but at Cersaie. So when that comes in, we'll make the announcement.
We will do it all. Yeah. Well, my family's background is Italian descent. My father actually, came from Italy, and he was one of the first people and he's noted for this, to kind of be a trendsetter, kind of a pioneer in importing high-end Italian tile to New York in 1976. You mean
you're from New York? You're not from Charleston, South Carolina?
Yeah, you could tell by my accent, right?
Yeah. Well, what we did is they had a pretty good little video that kind of introduced Cersaie to the world. How about we throw that up on the screen?
And you have that?
I've got that, and we'll go from there.
Check it out.
All right, let me see if I can do this. Clicky, click, click. And I want to go full screen. That was pretty cool, John.
Yeah, I'm pumped up. I wish I was there. So it's going on actually right now. We have real important people from Tile Bar there, so that's why Craig and I are back home. And
that's right. Somebody's got to run. Somebody's got to answer the phones.
Yeah, exactly. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was really cool. If you haven't seen that video is live on their website right now. It's kind of the rewind from last year. But John, you've been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
Does it change year to year, or is it kind of a gradual ease into it?
I mean, the only thing that changes for the most part are the products, but the Bologna Fairgrounds, as they call it, is really a really interesting thing. It's in northern Italy and in Emilia region of Italy, and it's really the tile show. It's pretty incredible. The tile show is the biggest show at this fair, and there aren't enough hotels in the community to support this one show, because every time you want to attend Cersaie, you have to book years in advance. Factories have things booked on an annual basis. If you don't have an inn, if you're not a good customer of one of these factories, you cannot get a room anywhere near. As a matter of fact, one year, traveling on my own to Italy, something got a little messed up in one of the factories, and I had a room every year reserved. Well, one year there was big miscommunication, and they were like, "Oh, you're coming?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm coming." Anyway, I didn't have my room. The closest hotel I found was in Rimini, which was about an hour and a half train ride.
Oh, wow.
I mean, literally, it was just insane how there's just not enough hotels. And you think, why don't they build more? But this is the biggest show. I did hear that they also have the lingerie show at this Bologna Fairgrounds. Can you imagine? Yeah, the Italian lingerie show.
At the same time.
No, it's not at the same time, but I'm not in that industry, but I'm flexible. But the show is really amazing. But the fairgrounds are unique, and I'll tell you why they're unique. Okay. It's not one building; it's 15 buildings set on a campus. So picture 15 buildings of different sizes. Most of them are one level. Most of them have like lots of glass, so you're like walking through like these walkways with trees, all under this one big campus, and you can like see into these buildings. There are a handful of buildings that are 2 stories, and there's 1 or 2 buildings that are multiple stories. And that building that's multiple stories particularly houses bathroom furnishing. So when you go to the Cersaie show, 15% of the show is bathroom furnishings, which I mean is toilets and sinks and things like that.
Gotcha. Porcelain products.
Yeah. So I always reserve, when I when I was the buyer for my company, my family business, I would always reserve that as my last day after I'm done with all the business. It was more just for fun to see like the new funky. I remember seeing a Lucite console sink
Wow.
in with fish, real fish inside, like water and fish floating around. And the toilet tank was also had a double wall with water with real goldfish swimming. Behind it was the real cavity for the water. So it's just like crazy things like that. And the Italians are just amazingly creative people. So it's always a fun. So these buildings, 15 buildings. So you just walk from one building to another. And then the next day you may double back and cross over, all connected by like these, paved walkways with trees and sitting areas outside. It's really amazing. It really, really is amazing.
Now with knowing all that and what's all there, what is the benefit if you are a manufacturer? What is the benefit of this show for a manufacturer?
Well, interestingly enough, I went to the show many times and I'm fond of it. And I mentioned it earlier on is the show is 40 years old. And I literally just pulled out my passport. So I was trying to find out the dates. I think I'm missing my original one. Because my first days were with my dad, who's now deceased. And I have some really, I was 18 and years old, 19. I don't know how old I was, but the show is 40 years old. So it's 1983. So I did not realize that I was literally at one of I was at maybe not the first show, but one of the first few shows. My dad just went to Italy on business. He went there. See, he went there, I think before, 76. So before the show even existed, he was a buyer in Italy. And then the show came around. I wish he was around where I can ask him, but I don't know. Maybe I was with them with the first show. So I have a lot of sentimental value, the Cersaie show. But 1983 was the first year. The organization that, the organizers, a company called Edice, EDI, CEO Editor, they were formed in 1979. And then 4 years later, the show came about. So I assume it took a few years to, create the show.
Eat under it, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a promoter. Like the promoter is Confidustria Ceramica. They're the promoter of the show. And so you asked the question, how is it important? I thought it was a really big show for the people in the U.S. because coming from New York, I thought it was a big show. But it turns out it's really a European show. There's 25 countries exhibited there. So it's not just Italian products. There are 25 countries exhibiting. This year's show is bigger than last year's, and there's 625 exhibitors total. So,
wow.
So it's a big show. There's a show of coverings. I think they have sometimes 1,000 exhibitors, but some of those exhibitors are like, a little 10 by 10, 20 booth showing somebody selling, tile spacers. Covering is huge and beautiful, but there are some small aspects of it. Did you see that video? Those booths, those are the most beautiful. If they were showrooms, they would be the nicest showrooms you've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. They spare no expense creating those. And I guess the goal, just similar to coverings, but the goal is they want buyers from all over the world to come in and say, I love this. I want a container load of this material. That's the goal.
Yeah, so that is the goal, but there's another goal also. This show is September, October every year. The tile show in Spain is early part of the year, right? I think it's January. And then there's the covering show early in the spring in the United States. Right. If you really want to if you want to be first to the game to get a new line, a new product, you have to go to those first two shows. By the time it comes to America, it's already the big players like the tile bars have already made a deal to take that line on. So when it comes to America, in many cases, you're getting like the second tier of new products or territories that haven't been tied up. But if you're a player in the tile world, you're at Cersaie, you're at Chevy Sommer in Spain first, and you get first crack at those products. That's really big.
That's cool. Now break it down a little bit more for those listening and watching. If you're not a manufacturer, but let's say you're just a architect or a construction professional, is there any benefit in going and being there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, it really depends. So in the United States at the covering show and the other shows, there's often, like right now, the Italian, there's a contingency of press coming from the United States, and the company as a marketing firm that goes to Italy, they bring the press to the show, and they want to introduce people to the new products, and ultimately, press becomes generated from the show. So it's really good exposure. If you're an architect doing a project anywhere in the world, what better place to go and see the newest product with the key people from these manufacturers there to answer any technical questions you want. So if you're building a small little project, you don't need to. So if you want to go, and because it's really exciting, that's great.
But if you're redoing the Bellagio, if
you're doing anything, a multifamily, a restaurant, hotel, any type of project, and you can get to Italy and check out these products firsthand, it is just a mind blow. It is a little tricky though, because sometimes they're showing products, and this is another reason you asked me, what's the purpose of these shows? The factories often have prototypes at the show.
Okay. So stuff they're not quite sure they're going to release yet, right?
Yeah, they first show it, all excited. They may not say anything to you that they've committed to it yet. Right. And there have been cases where they bring a product and they're like, this is going to be the most incredible product. We're going to kick the ass of all our competitors. Everyone's going to love it. And it's a flop. Nobody's interested in it.
Nobody talks about it. They don't even stop at that point. Yeah.
Right. So guess what? It doesn't get produced. And then I've seen the reverse happen. Well, in that scenario, say there's this product they're featuring is A in the front of the booth, and then off to the side is this other new product, and everyone's jumping all over it. Everyone's loving it. And people are like, well, who's bringing this in? I want the exclusive for it. I want the exclusive for the United States. I want this territory. And all of a sudden, the factory's like, wow, this is amazing. So they definitely float products for testing, especially, and they do that at all the other shows, even the covering show. So if they went to the extent of creating prototypes, they don't just make anything. I mean, they literally print the most beautiful brochures, even if it's a prototype, as if it's going forward.
Sure.
Yeah. And if it gets lukewarm reception, it doesn't die there. It then goes to the covering show in the United States, and they see the reaction there, because the market, even though there's some overlap, it's a different market, and all of a sudden it may hit really well in the States. And then what they do, then it'll go to town, and they'll take orders, they'll schedule the productions, and next thing you know, 2-3 months later, you're going to have product in your warehouse. So yeah, but designers, architects, specifiers do go to these shows, particularly from the bigger firms working on bigger projects.
That's cool.
What about from a installation perspective? Did you see that video? They had some. Did you see those large slabs? Did you notice?
I mean, that's always ever since the thin gauge porcelains have hit the market, it's always impressive to see those. And I think manufacturers like to put those out there as being installed, because if you don't do it often, and if you're a contractor like me, it's not that impressive because I've done it. But for architects and engineers and maybe some distributors who've never been on site and seen somebody install a 5-foot by 10-foot piece of porcelain, that's pretty impressive, and it'll draw a crowd. And I know that's kind of what they want to do. They want to draw a crowd with that. So that is cool. And I'm assuming, never have been there, I'm assuming they've got the setting material manufacturers, I'm sure, are there, and all the other Schluters and different people.
Yes. So there are a lot of the Schluter metal. A lot of people know that has like a generic name for the metal trims. Schluter is invented in Germany, so there are a lot of German companies that are showing at the Cersaie, and setting materials. Mapei Mapei is an Italian company, so they have
Right.
many manufacturing facilities throughout Italy. Do you know if the other players have any manufacturing facilities?
I don't know. I haven't heard of any. I know Ardex is from Europe. I think they're German also.
Right.
So there are some big European manufacturers that have a good foothold in the Americas. I didn't. I guess I should have thought about it. I didn't realize Mapei was Italian. I knew it wasn't from around here, but
yeah, and Mapei has manufacturing just like Laticrete, all over the world. They're not going to ship 50 pounds of gray thinset from United States till
right.
to China for setting some tile, right? Exactly. So it really it's really like there's a sealer company, Fila, right? That's an Italian brand, and they're made.
And Faber, which is we carry one of their products, maybe bringing on some other ones. They work with some of the glazing manufacturers. We carry one of their products, and they're probably there.
What's that grout company that makes some wild colors? It's an Italian company, but it doesn't have an Italian name. Like a Liticol. Liticol, have you heard of that?
I've heard of Liticol, but I've never used it. There's a lot of social media guys that use the Liticol.
Pretty sure it's an Italian
and good.
Yeah. If you want like the brightest orange or the craziest red, I mean, I know them for that. Maybe they do regular basic stuff, but I think they make some sort of epoxy type, really, high current generation product that's I know I did a hotel up in Roxbury, New York, and they needed like that orange, really specific color. They had a white tile and they wanted the orange grout. Like the grout was the more important than the tile.
Yeah.
And
well, now with Laticrete's new Permacolor Select Any Color, you can get it made to any color in the rainbow. You just got to provide them with a Pantone or a hex number, and they will make it for you.
That's amazing. So I've been meaning to ask you. So I know you could send them the color, but any color? I mean, aren't there like technical limitations? Like a red,
any color in the rainbow that they've got a Pantone number or a fan deck, you can give them the Sherwin-Williams paint number, and they can make it for you. And what's crazy is the minimum is not that large. I think it may have been one box of the Permacolor Select powders is all they require you to buy.
Wow.
And that's your color. You can call it Johnny Tedesco Brown, and nobody else can buy it.
Yeah, I'm going to be on that tonight, figuring out the new brown. The new brown.
the new brown by John Tedesco.
John,
we're kind of hitting that midpoint, and we like to play a game, and
I'm gonna stump you right now.
Oh wait, I was going first.
All right, you go first. All right,
okay, because I've got a video clip. You don't have a video clip.
Oh, okay.
Haha. See, when you get your video clip, then you can trump me.
That was fancy.
We do this every week. If you don't know who I am, my name is Craig. I'm the technical director at Tile Bar, and what I do day in and day out is deal with technical questions. So I like to bring John a technical question. I don't normally make it too hard on him because he's just a sales guy, but he has been in the tile business since Moses was a little boy. So now I have an actual question here from an actual client, and we're going to see if John can answer it. And if those of you watching online on TikTok, wherever you're watching from, if you've got the answer to this question, drop it in the comments. We'll hem and haw a little bit, and that's Southern for waste time. And we'll see if anybody gets the answer to this next question before John does.
All right.
All right, John. The question is, my customer is hesitant to use the white 24 by 24 matte porcelain tile for her outdoor patio, because the DCOF is less than 0.42.
Ooh.
Can she use it for the patio? So you've got a tile. I'm going to talk through it. You've got a tile that is a floor tile, 24 by 24. It's matte, so it's not polished, but its DCOF has come in under 0.42. Do you know what 0.42 is, John?
Yeah, that is the threshold of where it's considered to be a significantly good slip resistance. So the short answer is no, you shouldn't use it. The fact that it's white is useless. So it's a 24 by 24 porcelain. DCOF stands for dynamic coefficient of friction, which for those of you who may not be familiar, is a test that kind of literally just tests how much resistance. So if this is a tile and you have a sensor and the tile is slightly wet and you run it across, it measures how much friction, which kind of mimicking, right, Craig, like a shoe on top of a floor, how much resistance you're going to get. So DCOF 0.42 is a guideline.
You know where that guideline came from?
I mean, it's got to be TCNA.
No.
ASTM?
No.
ABCDFG?
The US of A. It is an ADA guideline. So,
interesting. So ADA guideline, it's interesting because ADA guidelines aren't building codes. They're just
correct
standards, right? So it's interesting that you could put something in and then someone unfortunately has some kind of accident, then they go back. Like, so when you're building a building, I don't believe anyone comes in and checks your DCOF. I think
no, not unless there's a problem.
As opposed to a building code, like if you come in and they're going to see that you put the joists correctly, they're going to see, a lot of specific things that an electrician or a plumber does. So it's a little tricky because if it's an ADA guideline, then you can go ahead and proceed with this job and be fine with it until someone has a problem, and then they back up, do some research, and like, did you follow this guideline? But what is also interesting is we use the word guideline.
Right. Well, yes, which is a strictly a recommendation.
Right. And they, for legal purposes, they don't make it a code or a specific, but the architect or the designer or the specifier have to take into other things into consideration, the environment, the use, right? So if it's a restaurant and it's a restaurant floor, and right off the restaurant floor is the kitchen, and it's a kitchen where people are coming in and out with their shoes and they're going, it's a greasy kitchen. So you may want that DCOF to be higher. The same way, if it's outdoors, right? You probably want it higher than 0.42 if you can. Well, it depends if it's undercover or not, right? So if it's completely exposed, if it's a sidewalk, right? Or a ramp. Now, ramp's a whole nother animal, right? Because then there's a lot more risk involved there. But there are pools like in New York City and certain areas that it's supposed to be 0.6 something, right?
So let's go back to the question, John.
Okay.
Because you talked a lot, and you talked. I'm not going to give you a yes for this one, and here's my reasoning.
All right.
It says, can you use this for a patio? So, as I said, this is 0.42 is an ADA recommendation from the government. And what that means, if you are building a building that is handicap accessible, it must meet ADA requirements. But the industry has kind of taken that ADA requirement and just blanketly applied it almost everywhere and said, well, everything's got to meet 0.42, 0.42, 0.42, which is not true. The only time you have to meet 0.42 is if it is specified as an ADA area or specified as 0.42. This lobby, even though they don't want it to meet ADA, they want it to meet the 0.42. So it is strictly a recommendation, and the recommendation does not have to be used. And especially in a residence, which this is, they can do whatever they want. They can put glass tile on the floor if they want to. Now, would I advise it? No.
Right.
But it is up to them, and if they want to use it. And keep in mind, slipperiness is relative. My son is a whole lot more steady on his feet than I am, and he probably wouldn't slip on something that I may slip on. And therefore, my 82-year-old father-in-law may slip on something that I might not slip on.
Right.
So that's why you have to take the numbers into consideration, because they are numbers, and those numbers mean something, but still the use of it means a lot. Just like you were saying, right outside of a kitchen, that's a greasy area. That's going to be a problem. And DCOF, you want it to be relatively high. And when you're coming out of a wet street into a lobby floor, you want your DCOF to be high. And that's why people use the 0.42. It really kind of keeps them out of litigation. It's a litigation thing.
Right.
So just to note, because I'm a nerd and I carry around this stuff in my head, exterior uncovered wet conditions, a safe number is 0.6. Ramps and inclines, 0.65.
Wow. And so you would think, why wouldn't just people get the most slip resistant tile, the highest?
That's a great question.
So what do you think the answer to that is? There's probably more than one reason.
There's probably more. The biggest reason for me is cleanability. The more slip resistance it has, the harder it is to keep clean. And if you've ever been to a public pool that's got a porcelain tile ramp or something to the bathroom, and you see those gray trails, that's not for aesthetics, that's nastiness, and it's hard to clean. So there's a balance. And we actually had a tile that a few years ago that it was a white hex, really popular a couple years ago, and people really loved it for their bathroom renovations, but it was a little slippery. So since we kind of developed it, we asked the manufacturer to add some more grip to it. We did that. Now the complaints are it's hard to clean. So it's a double-edged sword, but there is a fine balance. And so John, I'm gonna have to give you a no on that one.
Yeah, I'll accept defeat on that. So that's number 2, I think. Maybe
I think that's 2. Yes,
that's 2.
2 out of and this is episode 27. Ain't too bad.
No, it's not bad. But the cleanability is really a twofold thing. It's harder to clean because if you could picture something really smooth that has dirt sitting on it, you can take a sponge and probably wipe it off, because your sponge is going to kind of interact with the dirt. It's going to connect with the dirt. If it's something that's rough, what does that roughness mean? It means it's probably textured, and the textured under a microscope is kind of like hills and valleys, right? So there's highs and lows. Yeah. So that's kind of a real simple way of describing what texture would look like under a microscope. So there's dirt that's kind of lower and dirt that's higher and dirt that's lower. So a tile that has a high DCOF is harder to clean because of that, but it also gets dirty quicker. Because if you're walking with dirty shoes on, work boots,
taking it right off. Yep.
Yeah. So if you take if you're working on, you have a sneaker that's somewhat dirty and you walk on a tile that's really smooth, it's going to get on the tile, but it may not, completely grab it. If it's a high DCOF tile, it's going to grab the dirt. So it actually grabs the dirt more. It's harder to clean. And there's another reason too. Sometimes it does change the aesthetics too. Some factories don't want to, they have a certain style or a certain look or patina in mind, and the more you play with the texture, the more it could play with how light bounces off it, and how light bounces off it does impact, how it looks to you, the color and the look. So sometimes there isn't a desire for that, but yeah, that is pretty interesting. The 0.42, the 0.6, the 0.65, very interesting. Firms, it does fall down onto the specifier. So I find this conversation mostly with the specifiers, because they're the ones that are recommending that this building owner put down tile number 1. And that tile number 1 has certain characteristics to it. And God forbid someone falls, which is a slip fall is a typical scenario everyone's trying to avoid. And, then they're going to go back and say, well, why'd you specify this? And there are times where 0.42, there's liability somewhere where it's not a ramp, it's not outside, but 0.42 maybe is not enough. Maybe it should have been more,
Yeah. Think of locker room in a healthcare facility. You've got people that are not as stable. So yeah, there's definitely times when 0.42 may not cut it. And you're right. That all goes back to the specifier and knowing what they're specifying the material for. And don't be afraid to find some tiles that look nice, that are in a safe area, that are a dry area. And if it's under 0.42, it's probably going to be okay. Guarantee you there's millions of square feet of polished tile out there that doesn't meet the DCOF of 0.42 that are walked on every day.
There's a shopping mall in Long Island that has 300,000 square feet of marble in it, so it's interesting. It really is become more and more top of mind. Yeah. But there is something else with DCOF. The texture of the tile is the main driving technical aspect of the tile that generates this DCOF. In a laboratory, they're testing the tile. But what about grout joints? Tell us about that, Craig. How does that play into DCOF?
Well, yeah, it plays a big part into it. And the worst thing about it, the way they test for DCOF is called a DOT 3000 machine. Nobody ever needs to know that, but look it up. That's what they test it with. But you need a certain surface area of the face to test tiles. So once they get pretty small, hence you have a lot of grout joints, they can't test it with this material. But we know the grout joints add in DCOF because it channels things away from the face of the tile. And really, grip is your foot or your shoe making clean contact with the face of the tile. And if that happens and there's nothing in between the two, odds are you're not going to slip. But John, a mosaic tile, a 1x1 mosaic tile, has a really high slip resistance, even though we can't measure it because of that very nature. Now, the other thing that you haven't discussed about DCOF is there's some chemicals that can increase the slipperiness. And we talked a little bit about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are more like problem solving products, right? If someone puts something down and they're not happy with the slip resistance, how it's performing, there's something that you can do to the tile that's topical.
Yeah. I think we actually, one of our clips from our podcast, you and I talk about how maintenance contracts have ruined tile. Right. and that we were talking about cleanability, but also a lot of maintenance companies that are professional cleaners leave their cleaners on the tile, which therefore really mess with the slip resistance. I had a call the other day from one of our team members that the owner of a restaurant had just put in this. It was a plank tile, so I think it was a wood look, and they just opened up, and their servers were sliding all over the place. And I said, "What are you cleaning it with?" "Well, the cleaners are using this leave-on cleaner." I said, "That's the problem. I said the leave-on cleaner is leaving a residue on the tile. And number one, it's just like the grip. It's taking the dirt off of the shoes so it looks terrible. And then number two, it's creating a barrier between the shoe and the tile. So it is like a skating rink in there. I said, don't do that. Strip it and start over and find somebody that knows how to clean porcelain.
I remember going to a local pizzeria when my daughter was younger, playing soccer. We'd get pizza, and she still had her, rubber cleats on. And going to this pizzeria restaurant, she was sliding all over. I had sneakers on, and I was just like gliding on the floor. And I actually knew the owners of this place. I had provided tile. And I'm like, what are you cleaning this with? They bring out, like, I don't remember, but it was something like Lest Oil, like an oil-based cleaner. I'm like, you hear like you're slicking your floor up. I said, you need to get that off, like you just said, Craig. You need to get that off the tile. And my suggestion to them was at that point, super hot water with clear non-sudsing ammonia. That's like the most no-frills cleaner that you can use. Do you know why I say clear, and you know why I say non-suds?
No and no.
Okay. So clear, because sometimes the cleaners are blue and not in the restaurant, but in your home you may have white grout, and it's a possibility that the pigments in the cleaners. So I always say clear, and then non-sudsing, because ammonia cleans with or without the suds. So if you don't rinse it, it's more foolproof than non-sudsing. If you wash your floor with the sudsy material, right, and you leave it and you don't clean it off properly, you don't rinse it off properly, then that residue, it's kind of what you're talking about, is left on the surface. So it's easier to clean the residue off when it's non-sudsing, because the suds adds to that. So, but people sometimes add something that these professional cleaning companies want to make the tile look shiny.
Yeah,
which could make it slippery. And then there are products like Slip Guard, these other products that add texture. The ones that add texture aren't there ones, didn't they used to use acid to etch something to make it slip resistant?
Yeah, there was some back in the day, some other products. We carry a product called Safe Floor, which sponsored. It's not sponsored, but hey, you can sponsor us though. But Safe Floor by Faber is the product that we carry, and what it does is their story is pretty interesting. Is they were making the chemicals to make the glazes for the tile factories in Italy. So what they did is they reversed engineered that process and came up with this solution called Safe Floor, which actually creates micro abrasions in the glaze and in the porcelain, which once again gets the water away from it and gives your foot contact with it to give added. And I tested it on several different tiles, porcelain, and even some stone tiles, and it on average added about 15 to 20% more slip resistance to each tile, which was pretty amazing. And it did not change the aesthetic of it. You couldn't tell it was on it.
Wow. And I'm sure it varies, but how long does it last? And is there maintenance?
No maintenance. Once those micro abrasions are there, they're there.
Wow.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that product. It doesn't rinse off. It has actually changed the chemical composition and physical properties of the face of the tile and made it more slip resistant.
Wow.
I don't know why we're not selling it by the truckload, but maybe nobody knows about it. So
well, it's a problem solver. If you don't, it's a good thing sometimes, right? So if you have a product and you buy the right product and it's performing fine, you don't need that. I did have a restaurant recently where I was involved in, and the original specification was a horrible specification, durability, slip resistance. I came in with a much better product and they loved it, but I recommended it in a 2-inch mosaic. And this is a well-known hotel chain, And I recommended it in a 2x2 tile, 2-inch tile, because the tile has some sheen to it, but the grout was adding that slip resistance. Then during COVID, things were just like, everything just fell apart. The job was really a mess. And they just went ahead and placed a purchase order for the bigger size of the tile.
Seems like I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah. And they didn't have anybody get hurt, but after they opened, they were worried. And they decided to do something topical. I wasn't involved in that decision, what they used, but so they kind of cheaped out on the tile. The tile didn't have the best slip resistance, much better than the original spec, much stronger than the original spec. But then the price, as you know, 2-inch by 2-inch mosaic is about 3 or 4 times the price of a regular field tile. And so they just decided to do the bigger tile, went ahead and did it, and then they regretted it. And now they had to spend a lot of money. And now I think it's a product they have to maintain also. So it was really a bad decision on their part. Do you have a drink by any chance?
I got my typical right now. Just got my Leroy cup with some sweet tea. How about you?
All right, just a little whiskey. So cheers to you. Cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
Hey, since it is a happy hour, and it is Tuesday, I'm going to try to stump you.
Okay. I need a good stumping.
So today is National What Day? I'm going to put it up on the screen here. All right. So
okay, I see it. I got you. So for those of you watching on TikTok, John likes to, since I'm stuck in this room, I don't know what day it is most of the time. So I have to choose between 3 days, and one of them is wrong.
Yeah. So it's 2 truths and a lie, right? That's kind of thing.
2 truths and a lie. Okay.
Right.
So help me out, everybody out there in internet world. So I've got the choice of Pancake Day, Dumpling Day, love dumplings, and Candy Apple Day. I like all 3 of those. All 3 of those are interesting. Pancake Day, Dumpling Day, Candy Apple Day. So 2 of them are the actual day.
Today is a National
Daughter's Day today, but because I saw a bunch of people posting about that online.
I think it was yesterday,
but I figured out it was not today.
Yeah, it was yesterday. Yes. National.
So those people that posted today, you're a day behind.
Yeah.
And so, I'm going to say, since nobody out there in internet world wants to help me, I think today is Pancake Day and Candy Apple Day.
Those are good choices.
Well, they're the sweet choices.
Okay. All right. Good. Any rationale in your decision, like why you picked those?
I chose 2 sweets, and I'm leaving the dumplings out for now.
Okay. So I am happy to say you're wrong.
I'm never right.
It's a tough one because they're random from left field, these national days, right?
Yes,
so
they are.
All right, so I'm going to give you a second shot.
Let's say pancakes and dumplings.
Correct.
It's pancakes. So it had some dumplings and pancakes. Okay.
That's it. So today is National Pancake Day and National Dumpling Day. It is not Candy Apple Day. I thought that would throw people because, apples are in season and sweet and all that stuff.
Bobbing for apples. Yeah, it's the fall thing to do, definitely.
It really is. So, it's been really interesting talking about these technical things. We started off the show with Cersaie. So if you're in the industry and you can get yourself to a trade show, you have to do it. Even if you're not a buyer, you just got to get there. Be it a local show, a trade show. It's really very educational if you like the industry.
Yeah, I agree. Even as a contractor, I enjoy going to the shows because most of the time there's educational benefits there. I'm sure there are in Cersaie. So go to your local shows. Go to, if you can make it to Coverings in America, if you can make it to Cersaie or Chevasama, go. I think it's worth giving the perspective of the industry in a whole in one fell 4-day or 3-day area.
Yeah,
And
Cersaie is 4 days, I believe. It covers 1.5 million square feet of space.
it's crazy to think that we, and I say that with everybody here, are a part of an industry that's that big and that influential, that there's so much going out there and money spent, and just seeing how big an industry it is, and you're a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, folks, it's Tuesday. Summer is gone, but we're here. We're going to be with you all winter. So hang in there. We're going to make it through. It's not even winter. It's far from winter.
It's fall.
It's like, yeah, it's 59 degrees and it's cold. But you know, we'll be fine. We're going to get through it together. We're here for you. We love to talk tile. If you're watching this live, well, here's your last chance to say hello. If you're watching this on a rerun or an encore presentation, put a little hello, send a message to us. We're all over. We're on X. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. We're half on TikTok. If you're out there in TikTok world, you got to remember, well, you tell your TikTok people.
They can hear you. The TikTok people can hear you. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for joining in on TikTok. And John has been, he's stuck with us, the Tile channel. So make sure you go and subscribe to John so you can see him. Yes. There is actually somebody else here. It's not just an AI bot.
That's it. You may regret it, but go ahead. Follow me and we'll see what happens. Well, Craig, it's been fun. We will see everyone next week. We have a lot of good guests coming up in the weeks and months to come. If you have a suggestion for a topic, let us know. If you're a super interested person in the industry, let us know. Maybe make some suggestions on guests. And this is John Tedisco. I'd like to wish everybody peace, health, and happiness.
And this is Craig. Thanks for joining in, both everywhere you're listening. Keep up with us, social media, wherever you like us best. Continue to like, subscribe, leave us comments. We love reading your comments. So if there's nothing else, we'll see you next Tuesday. Don't forget, let's keep learning together and tile the world.